Um, thanks for joining us on this webinar that we're hosting. The webinar itself is on why potentially you should consider becoming a non-exec director on the board of the Institute of Workplace Facilities Management. What we've done in previous years is we've done publicity in advance of the elections, which we hoped kept members informed as to the process and the expectations of the role. But we thought this year, as we did last year, we just hold a webinar, maybe for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just to run through certain things, and also to answer any questions. So we want to make it as interactive as possible. So the intention really is to go through a bit about the role, and what the expectations are, what the process is, and then what the aim is then is to open the conversation up, and I'll be asking Linda and Jake to become involved in that. But I'll do the formal introductions in a second, and then what I'm really keen to do is to make it as interactive as possible. Is for if you've got any questions during the course of the webinar, to post those in the chat function. I'll keep an eye on those, and then what we'll try and do towards the end is to pick up on any of those. What we'll also aim to do is to share the answers. Hopefully we'll be able to answer them now. If there's anything that we're kind of slightly unsure on, then we'll follow up on that, but we'll try and do that. But as I say, if questions along the way, just please post them in the chat function, and yeah, we'll discuss it from there really. So purpose really, if I can just do a general introduction really, is the fact that this coming July, when we hold our AGM, which this year is in Manchester on the 24th of July, we'll be announcing two latest non-exec directors to join the board of IWFM. So there's two current vacancies. Those vacancies are as a result of two existing members of the board whose tenure is for a period of 3 years, and then they are standing for re-election for those roles. But it's open to the wider membership, clearly. So the election takes place, and that's what we're going to be going through the process of in the coming weeks in terms of self-nomination and then the elections themselves. And we'll talk through a bit of in terms of that process as well. So in terms of the agenda for what we've got here, so in a second I'm just going to ask Linda and Jake to introduce themselves. Also talk to you a bit about the timelines, to talk about the role itself, our expectations as a board and as the institute of any non-exec director, but also I suppose as well, and this is a key part of it, what benefits potentially as individuals, professionals, it is for you to become a non-exec director as well, and then we'll have the Q&A function as well. So by way of introduction, firstly of myself, then I've been on the board of the Institute for coming up to 6 years. I stood for election as a non-exec director 6 years ago and was successful in being elected onto the board. And then after a period of 2 years, I was asked to step up to the chair role, which was vacated at that time by Martin Bell, who'd served his tenure there. The tenure as board chair was for 2 years, with an option for an extension of a further 2 years, 1+1, at the discretion of the board to make that decision, and I've been fortunate enough to be asked to do that. So I've been chair of the institute what will be 4 years in July. I have to step down then. I can't change the rules. I can't do a Donald Trump and try and change the rules or anything like that. So I will be stepping down as chair of the board in July, and the new chair will be announced also at the AGM. So I've been volunteering for the Institute about 14 years. Started off in the North region as a volunteer for the Lancashire group, then got involved in the Northwest, and then became regional chair of the North region for around 3.5 years. About 10 years ago, I started that role. And then after I did that 3.5 years as regional chair, I wanted to step aside to let somebody else take the regional chair role, but also I was interested in having a more central role within the institute of joining the board, and that's why I put myself forward at that particular time as a non-exec director. Now, as we'll find out in a second, different people become involved with the Institute as non-exec directors during different routes. My personal route was just through regional volunteering, but that isn't necessarily the route for everyone. Different people have those different kind of ways that they've become or stood for an ED election. So I'm going to introduce first of all to Linda. Linda's just going to explain a bit about her day job and then how long she's been on the board. So over to you, Linda, if that's okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Linda Alexander. I'm currently the Head of Facilities Management for the Commonwealth Secretariat. So that is actually the Commonwealth where His Majesty the King is the head of the Commonwealth. It is an international organisation and it is also intergovernmental organisation. So I've been in this role for about 2.5 years. I put myself forward as a non-executive director last year, and I was successfully appointed last July. It is actually my first volunteering role for the IWFM, but when we come to some of the questions later, I can explain a little bit about why and what drove me to put myself forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I'll introduce you to Jake, and just for those on the call as well, Jake is not in Gran Canaria; he is in sunny York. Just to clarify that. So, Jake, over to you, if that's all right.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, just to clarify, I wish I was in Gran Canaria, but I'm not. Sadly, I'm in York. But the weather's lovely, so can't complain. But yes, good afternoon, everyone. Really great to be on the call today to get to talk to you all about the potential opportunity to join the board as a non-exec. So my personal journey to becoming head on the board was, so I'm just coming up to completing my 2nd year as a non-exec. I was fortunate enough to be elected in the summer of 2023. So I'll have 1 more year in my elected term to serve. We can get a bit into the kind of whys and wherefores in a few moments, but just in terms of my day job. So I'm a civil servant. I've been a civil servant since 2018, and before that I worked in the education estates sector, and it was during my time in the education estate sector that I first became involved with the IWFM. I have to say, actually, similarly to Linda, this is my first volunteering experience with the IWFM as a board member. So I've never actually done any of the regional stuff. Having said that, I do actually now sit on the Strategic Leaders Forum committee as well, which is another volunteer role which I've taken on recently. So yeah, more than happy to sort of share some more insight and some of my experiences once we get into the Q&A in a few moments' time. Thanks, Mark.
Yep. Thanks, Jake. So let's go into a bit more detail. As I say, please do, if you've got any questions, please do post them on the chat function. So let's just go into the mechanics of the timelines as well, just so people are aware of that, really. So the deadline is on Friday, the 9th of May, to self-nominate. And the criteria that is stated for anybody to become a non-exec director on the board is they have to be of a certified grade or above, and have to have held that for 6 months. That, I suppose, is just to make sure that we've got people that aren't just kind of have become certified for the purposes of running for election. We want them to have gone through that particular process as well, so it's not a rush thing before an election. The key really is the fact that, as well as self-nominating, you need 2 members that are of member grade or above. So that will be either member, certified, or fellow, that are required to second the application. And it mentions there on the slide that corporate or group member main contacts can second an applicant, but they can't stand as a non-exec director unless they have the individual membership at certified or above. So that's a clear distinction. It's got to be an individual member if you are going to stand, and you have to be certified or fellow to stand, but you can be nominated by somebody that's the member grade or certified or fellow grade as well. The piece of advice I would give in terms of that as well is the fact that we sometimes have a situation where somebody self-nominates and they ask a couple of people if they will support that nomination. They provide the information, and then that clock is ticking, and suddenly with a day or so to go, although those people have said they're going to support them, they haven't actually got round to it. So what I would encourage you to do if you are considering standing is just make sure that those that are supporting you are committed and not just paying lip service to saying, oh yeah, I'll do it, no problem, but actually do it for you as well. And don't forget, it's just an important thing, because sometimes there can be a bit of a rush, because we don't want to preclude people from the process that have put themselves forward if they have got eligible people that will support them, but it's just a matter of just making sure that takes place. The other thing just to mention, as well as the fact that there is a level of clear independent scrutiny required in such elections, because they are a membership vote and we've got to do the right thing and have the visibility on that. So we do have our own independent scrutineers who are UK engaged and have worked with us for a number of years. UK engaged run these elections for us. They also are involved heavily within our AGM and the processes that. So as a professional body, it's important that we have that impartial independent experts that help us to make sure that we follow the due process on that. So that's where UK Engage are, which again will explain, and you may already know this, but when you're getting those emails from UK Engage, that is what it will be relating to. It could be relating to the NED elections, or it could be relating to the AGM as well. Sometimes some of these emails might go into people's spam folders depending on how they're set up. So we always encourage people just to keep an eye on their spam filters to make sure that they don't go into there and are lost within the ether of those, really. The last thing I just want to mention on this particular slide as well, for anybody that wants to stand, it is for a period of 3 years, as I've mentioned before. The maximum term that any non-exec director is able to spend on the board as an elected non-exec director is 6 years. So a person could be elected this summer, stands for 3 years, stands for re-election and potentially maybe successful, and their next term will be 3 years. After the end of that second period of 3 years, that 6-year term is the maximum that they're able to be on the board. So I just wanted to kind of stipulate that as well, that there is that kind of opportunity for somebody to potentially be on for 6 years, but they would have to seek re-election and be successful in doing that, really. And also it depends sometimes on the personal circumstances for people as well. Sometimes people are just more suited saying, actually, after the 3 years, I want to do something else, or I need, I'm not able to devote the time I need to. So all my circumstances have changed, blah, blah, blah. But I just wanted to make that clear as well. So what does the role involve? And this is the key element to it, really, in understanding within a professional institute like IWFM as to what the board responsibilities and specifically the non-exec director's role is, really. And as the slide mentions there, really, there's 2 key parts of what that role will be. The first is really about kind of the strategy that is set by the Institute going forward, and that underpins all the activities that the Institute does going forward for a period of time. So if, for example, we talk about the current IWFM strategy, that was put in place in 2022, and it was a 3-year strategy and is due to end at the end of this year. And that talks within the strategy of what the purpose of the strategy, but also the objectives and the targets and the activities that are going to be done along that time frame. It is for the board to keep revisiting that strategy. It is for the board to hold the executive to account on the delivery of that strategy, but also fundamentally for the board to contribute towards the formulation of that strategy. So going forward, we've got a new strategy that will be in place 2026, potentially up to 2030. That is currently under development, but the board and the executive will be working closely on the drafting of that new strategy, and then going forward from the 1st of January 2026 onwards, the board will have the responsibility of making sure that that strategy is delivered. The other element to the role as well, and this is kind of the kind of the legal side of things, I suppose, as a director of an organisation, is part of the board's responsibility in the NEDs specifically as well. As part of that is also looking through the effectiveness and the accountability of the institute for delivering on those strategic aims. There's also the responsibility as well of financial governance as well. So part of that is looking at the budgets that are prepared and the accounts that are prepared as part of the regular board meetings as well. And so there's a collective responsibility on all of us in terms of that as well, and that's a legal responsibility of a director of an organisation. A key part of the role as well as a non-exec director is that ambassadorial role, and that can be really promoting really what the institute is doing and get the message across, because you are a representative of the institute at a senior level. And it's a key expectation really that we want members of the board to be putting the message out there to the membership community, the wider FM community, as well as to what the institute may be doing, or the message that we want to be getting out there to the marketplace. A good example, for example, this week is the fact that the Market Outlook survey for 2025 has been published, and we're keen for members of the board as well as our volunteer community to get the message out to say, listen, this is out, have a look at it, and you know, kind of analyze some of the results that are coming out of it. But there could be other things along the way as well. It can be attendance at different regional events. So for example, Linda and I were last week were at the London regional event, and earlier this week I was at the Risings one as well. So we where we can, it's getting involved in some of the activities as well that our volunteer community, but as a board representative really. Just to mention as well, the collective responsibility, which I've touched upon before, really is the fact of this fiscal scrutiny and governance adherence. It's very different whether you're working particularly in a private sector organisation or to a certain extent for a public sector organisation as well, but there are strong governance procedures for a professional institution that has to be followed, and it's a board's responsibility to make sure that that is the case. And that can be the way that we do business, it can be relating to the composition of some of our committees, but it's making sure that governance is followed, but also as well, just to go on to that fiscal responsibility, as well as to making sure and scrutinise and understand the financial accounts that are prepared for us at every board meeting as well, so that we can track the position financially of the institute as well. And then the other thing, just in terms of the frequency of meetings as well, we have 5 board meetings per year. We usually aim to have the board papers around a week in advance of those board meetings. Now, it's just it's a necessary part of the role that there are sometimes quite a number of papers that need to be read in advance. There may be questions that may arise from a review of those papers that need to be asked in advance as well, which we have the facility of board members to be able to do via our Teams site. But it's coming into the meetings prepared, because what we don't do in the meetings is just go through these papers page by page, because that would be extremely dry to be able to do that, and quite tedious, to be fair, as well. So what we try and do is give people sufficient time to read the papers, absorb them, maybe ask any questions, and then we come into the board meeting and have on those specific areas of the agenda, then we're able to have a discussion. We try and get the author of those papers to bring it to life, and then we can have a discussion on some of the key issues or key themes that are within those papers as well. But it's really important for any member of the board coming into those meetings that they come in really well prepared, having read those papers, to make sure that they understand exactly what's within them really. So that's the NED role requirements, I suppose. The last thing really that I just want in terms of the nuts and bolts as such of the role is why become a non-exec director of IWFM really. There's several reasons that we've mentioned here, but I'm going to kind of get Jake and Linda shortly just to give their own personal perspective as well. But some of the things that it can help individuals, and based on feedback we've got from people that have been non-exec directors on the board previously, it's really good for personal professional development. You are part of a professional institute of around between 11,500 to 12,000 members, a turnover in excess of £4 million, and there to be, developing our profession, and to be at the forefront of that, the centre of it, is from a professional perspective really, really good. You learn so much. As I say, I've been on the board 6 years. I've learned a huge amount over that particular time. So it can be, in terms of your experience and understanding and conversations, and understanding the wider marketplace as well, really, really beneficial. A key part of that role as well for anybody that's wanting to join the Institute is their contribution to the strategic direction, like I've mentioned before, in terms of the development of the strategy, but how that is then progressing, and also providing insight. A key part of what we do at least twice a year is we have horizon scanning sessions as part of our board agenda, where we bring all those different insights of what people are feeling in the marketplace at the moment, which again helps to develop the strategy and our focus in all areas of what we are, how we operate as a professional body. The other element, to a couple of elements as well, is the fact of it that it's an opportunity. A key part of what we aim to do as an institute is to increase our membership, but also to increase the influence of the institute. And anybody that becomes a non-exec director by association with the institute has the ability to really amplify that message across there as well. And as I say, it's, as well as influencing, is providing that insight. Within the board currently, we've got quite a diverse range of people and of different jobs within the sector as well. We've even got some people that don't work within the sector as co-opted non-exec directors. So we've got that wider view, and that's really, really important, that we have that wide variety of insights and experience and views that we're able to collectively then come together. And that's a part of the key part of the board dynamic. So that's the main part of what I wanted to cover. What I wanted just to ask Jake and Linda really is for their personal insights, really. So I'm going to go to Jake first and really ask, what motivated him to make that decision kind of just over 2 years or so ago, to kind of think, right, I'd like to stand as a non-exec director.
Thanks, Mark. So yeah, I think a lot of the points that you touched on just a few minutes ago absolutely resonated with me. As I mentioned earlier on, it's the first time I've got involved volunteering with the Institute, and I've really enjoyed it. But I think in terms of my motivations, 3 or 4 of those points that you mentioned really did resonate. So I think the fact that I do work in the civil service, and one of the big focuses we have, particularly in my role at the moment, so I work in the Office of Government Property in the Cabinet Office, and one of our big focuses at the moment is to really push the benefits of becoming accredited, becoming more of a professionalised workforce within the central government property team. I felt that it was a really great opportunity for me to give something back to the Institute that I frankly owe a lot to, in terms of the professional development that I've gained from the IWFM over the years. And also it was to become a little bit of a bridge, I think, between the Institute and the particularly the public sector and the government property profession, which really sort of resonates with my day job as well. So it was almost a double benefit really for me to apply for becoming a non-exec.
Okay, thanks, Jake. How about yourself, Linda, in terms of what kind of made you decide that you wish to stand just over 12 months ago?
Yeah, thank you. Really good question. A lot of mine was actually personal. So I've actually been a member for 25 years plus. So originally signed up as a BIFM member. So I'm just a good example of somebody that's actually just gone about their career, focused on, becoming the best facilities manager that I possibly can, but I've always had the institute there in the background supporting you. And I realised that I've done really well. I've been really successful in my career. And it was a moment of reflection that I felt, well, I should actually try and give something back. And because I've had previous NED experience, for me, that seemed quite a sort of natural just to put myself forward for the NED role. I'm not very comfortable in sort of limelight and those types of activities. So for me, it's that you're making an impact at a strategic level. You're actually bringing your skills and experience of someone on the ground that's been a facilities manager for quite a number of years. As Mark had previously mentioned, there was also a personal development element to it, which actually, before I'd put myself forward, it was something in my own personal appraisal in work that I'd actually put forward, that it was something that I was going to try and achieve and aim for. So I think, just echoing what Mark has said and a little bit of what Jake has said, I think it's really good for the institute that they get a whole raft of people from different skill set. There was one that was even more prominent for me, and that's actually, you may recall, from when I first started in facilities, there wasn't a lot of women in facilities management, and the fact that I'm a woman of colour as equally just made me more determined to put myself forward, because I still think within the industry there's still a little bit of underrepresentation. So they were my personal ambition.
That's a great point. Thank you, Linda. I suppose the second question now, Jake, having had the experience for 2 years, Linda for the last 12 months, what surprised you most about the role? What didn't we tell you in advance?
So it's a bit of it's probably a bit of a cliche, really, and it's probably more a reflection of my ability to not necessarily appreciate, I think would be the right way to put it, just how close you are to the centre of the action when you become a board member. Any strategic decisions that need to be taken in terms of the institute, you're right there in the room, and really there's no. So I think the weight of responsibility, but not in a bad way, is something that probably surprised me as much as anything. There's some really crunchy strategic decisions that need to be taken at board level, and you're one of a few people within the institute's community who were able to contribute to that decision-making process. So whilst it probably shouldn't have been a surprise to me, it kind of did land, I think, as a bit of a surprise when it came to it, and all of a sudden you're not just a member of the institute reading the publications and putting the letters after your name. All of a sudden that shifts to you having to be a key part of the decision-making process for some of those really big strategic decisions.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, and just to echo that, sometimes I have conversations, and if I equate it to the chair role as well, that people sometimes think it's almost like a ceremonial title as such within the institute, that you're there and you wheeled out at events every now and again. But you're absolutely right in terms of that board responsibility. It's front and center of being of decision making of the institute. We are, as a collective, ultimately accountable for the performance of the institute, and it comes with quite a bit of responsibility. So how about you, Linda? What surprised you most in the last kind of 12 months or so in the role?
Well, I think, I think initially you have to take your hat off to the exec team, because I think you do somehow forget the sheer volume of what the institute is actually delivering. So I think that is a moment of reflection when you think, well, as Jake said, this is big, and there's a lot to the role, and what the institute is actually trying to achieve and deliver. So I think that was sort of number one. And what you just sort of mentioned about the collective. So I think it's quite important to keep ensuring that you may have different views and different opinions on matters, but as a group and as a board, you have to reach that consensus and collective way forward. So when there's some challenging, which I do recall after sort of first being in the role, literally only about 4 or 5 weeks, we did have quite a challenging topic that as a board we had to get through. So it's often, you think about all the good things that you're going to achieve out of this, but sometimes there are some challenging issues and topics that you need to collectively get to a common goal and direction and a decision. So that's the thing that sort of surprised me the most.
Okay, thanks, Linda. I'm going to ask this next question for Jake, and then I'll ask a further question of both of you, really. And it's the time commitment side of things, which is an important element of the role. So Jake, from your personal perspective, how much time does it involve? Because I think for anybody considering the non-exec director role, it is important to understand that you need the support of your employers to be able to do it. The worst scenario would be to coming into the role and then to be said, well, I can't, my employer won't allow me to attend the board meetings, or I don't have the time to be reading the papers. So in terms of practicalities of the role, Jake, what's your thoughts in terms of the time, how long it takes?
Yeah, so I think that it's an important factor when you're considering whether or not to go for the role, because, as you say, a lot of the time, all of the time, more or less, the board meetings are taking place during the day, during the working week. So it's important that people have the support of their employers to do that. From a personal perspective, I'm lucky in that my employer, the civil service, have always been very supportive of me doing this. Indeed, actually, it's quite beneficial, as I mentioned earlier on, for the property profession to have a seat at the table, albeit it's not, strictly speaking, the property profession that have got a seat at the table. It's me as an individual member that's been elected. Probably an important distinction to make, but I'm lucky in the sense that my employer is very supportive. So there's obviously the 5 board meeting dates in the calendar year. I would say from a personal perspective, you've got the travel as well, either side of the board meeting. So it is a full day when it's board time. In terms of the preparation, I'm quite a slow reader anyway, so it probably takes me a little bit longer to read the papers than it does a lot of people. But I tend to block out a good 2 or 3 hours to make sure I'm giving the papers the time that they deserve. So that happens at some point in time leading up to, as Mark said, the week before the board. So all in all, I think, and if you want to then get involved with other things as well as in a volunteer capacity with the Institute, that's an option that's available to you as well. So as a bare minimum, I would suggest that you're looking at 2 to 3 hours preparation for each board, plus the travel, plus the board itself. So I think that's probably a fair reflection, Mark.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jake. And thank you for the wind chime accompaniment a couple of times as well there in the background. It's getting windy in Yorkshire. The last question I was going to ask for both of you, really, and it's a fundamental one as well, is the fact that anybody that's wanting to stand as a non-exec director, what we want is them to enjoy the experience, to learn, but for it to be not a slog, but to actually for them to have that time on the board and actually at the end of it think, I've really enjoyed that. Yes, it was challenging at times. Yes, there was a significant time commitment, but Raki, what a worthwhile thing to do, hopefully. So I want to ask Linda first, your personal reflections on what have you enjoyed most so far about kind of the non-exec director role?
I think firstly, really truly understanding the mechanics of how the Institute works. So for me, I've sort of enjoyed taking on all that additional information of how the cogs and the wheel operate. For me, I actually enjoy working with the other board members. What I'm trying to actually do on a personal level is attend as many of the social SIGs and groups, just to, show my support to those groups. I'm just trying to have a look at my notes. I've never attended the award ceremony, so that was a particular highlight last year, because it was the first time that somebody like me in the types of organisations that I work in wouldn't normally get to afford to attend. So in the role as board, I got to attend, so that was a really enjoyable evening, and just a massive successful event. So it was, a privilege and an honour to actually be part of that event. And like last week, went to the London event. I think before Christmas, I'd gone to one of the Rising FM events. And what I try to do when I go is actually find people that are either new to IWFM or are just starting out in their career, and then I just homing on them and just try and make them feel welcome. So that's a little bit of what I'm currently enjoying about it.
Thanks, Linda. How about you, Jake? What you enjoyed most about it?
So I've enjoyed it all, and that sounds cliched, but it's been a true, as Linda says, true privilege, true honour to actually be able to represent myself and my profession at the board level, at the professional institute, and that I don't think it gets much better than that, really, in terms of personal and professional accomplishments. I think some of the unforeseen benefits that I've enjoyed is that it's really helped me to grow my network as well. So I think Linda mentioned we've got a great board, actually. We've got a great dynamic. There's some brilliant people who sit on the board who I wouldn't have otherwise got the chance to meet and to connect with. And even from a professional perspective, that's spun off into having some really productive conversations offline in the margins of the board meetings, which I think will be sort of mutually beneficial to both myself and a couple of other people who are on the board as well. So it's all good from that perspective. I don't think I've got a reflection that isn't positive about my experience on the board. Okay,
brilliant. Thank you both for your insight and your thoughts in terms of that. So what happens next? The plan is that this recording is going to be made available to the wider membership. So if there were anybody that wasn't able to join us today, they will have access to the recording and can have a look at that at a time that's more convenient for them. The other thing, a couple of things I just want to mention. We haven't got any questions in the questions and answers, which is fine. But if there's anything subsequent that anybody that's on the call thinks, actually, I should have mentioned that, or should have asked that, or I want to do it on a private basis, that's my email address. Please just ping me an email and let me know on that. The final thing, really, from my perspective in wrapping up, is to remember that the deadline to get the nominations in is a week tomorrow, so Friday the 9th of May. So make sure that that's imprinted if you do want to go for the election to do that. The other two things I just want to mention as well, in terms of just a reiteration, and I think we've probably mentioned it already, but I'm going to say it again. If you are considering going for the role, make sure you can commit both for the time that's needed in the board meetings, but for the period of the 3 years as well, because you are an elected representative of the membership, and that is a commitment that you're giving to be able to sit on that board for at least the next 3 years. So it's important to understand what's that requirement as well. And I suppose the other the thing to consider as well, the final piece of advice, is look in terms of the understanding the motivations, which I hope we've been able to kind of articulate a bit today, really, is the fact of the motivations for doing it, and it is about supporting the institute and the profession. It is about personal development. It's also bringing that personal insight, and also from a board perspective, it's potentially opening doors to the Institute, whether it be in your working career, that you may be able to assist the Institute in delivering the strategy because of the people that you know within the profession as well. So there's a lot to consider, but it's making sure that people are standing for election for the right reasons, because they want to really contribute to the Institute and driving the profession forward. So I'm going to call it a day there. I'm sorry, we've kind of, we said it was going to be around 30 minutes. We've gone up to 40 minutes, but I hope it's been useful for those that have been able to join us. I do want to give thanks to the Institute for arranging the webinar. And as I say, we'll share that. I particularly want to thank Linda and Jake for joining and giving their insight and their contribution to the board over the period of time that they've been on the board as well. So I appreciate that they're giving up their time to do it. And yeah, thanks for joining us. And as I say, follow up, let us know if there's any further questions. But thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.